Hello everybody, I'm Scoop, and Avatar Way of the Water is really freaking long. Now, I'm going to try to keep this review really short because I'm just not in the mood to edit a really long video on this movie now that I've sat in the theater for like 4 hours watching it. So let's keep this brief and mostly spoiler free. So overall, this movie was definitely not bad. It was pretty similar to the first one, but it was just way too overstuffed in my opinion. The story is fine, it's pretty serviceable again, but the first one was better in my opinion. I actually watched the first one for the first time ever like 2 weeks ago. I know it's kind of crazy to say. Now, the reason I hadn't watched the first one until now, all these years later, was because the only good things I would ever hear about the movie were, "Oh my god, bro, the CGI is so good. You have to watch this movie. The CGI is incredible. You can't even tell it's CGI." And I would just be like, yes, I can tell it's CGI. Blue people aren't even real. All joking aside, the CGI in that movie is actually incredible, and the story is pretty serviceable. But what it does really well is it makes the planet of Pandora itself feel like a character, and that's what elevates the kind of just fine story. This movie sort of ditches the feeling of Pandora itself as a character for more of an ocean preservation anti-whaling message, which is great and very well delivered, but I think the price we paid of losing Pandora as a character was a bit too high for that. So if you don't know the basic plot of this movie, that's pretty good. That means the marketing was doing its job. This movie had some great trailers. Basically what happens is, a solid number of years after the first movie, Jake has a family with 4 children, obviously his wife is still around, until the humans return, and they're looking for unobtainium again, probably. I mean, I would assume that's why they land in the forest, but they're also looking for a new thing, and also they're hunting down Jake. So Jake and his family are forced to escape off into the faraway area of the water, and they join the tribe of Water and Navi and have to learn the way of the water, if you can believe that one. If you ask me, this movie is just too ambitious and too overstuffed. The fact that we still have 3 more Avatar movies to go after this is what makes this movie so frustrating to me, because you really have 2 pretty good movies in here smushed together really awkwardly. So the main plot line is really about Jake and his family. There's that line in that trailer like, "Family is our fortress," and that really is supposed to be the theme of the movie. And the problem with that is, Jake has absolutely nothing going on. He's basically just being a really annoying and kind of bad father for most of the movie, in my opinion, and he doesn't have that many scenes dedicated to him growing on his own as a character. We actually have a very nice coming-of-age story with his middle child, his son. He has 2 sons, 2 daughters, 1 very young daughter, 2 middle boys, and an oldest sister, and the one about the coming-of-age plot is the second youngest child, the younger brother. The younger brother is basically the protagonist for a good chunk of the movie. Like, there is a very, very long point of the movie where it's just the brother out with some of the water people and some of the siblings, just exploring, making friends, and also not making friends, getting into fights, stuff like that. That's just very well done. I really enjoyed. However, Jake only gets like 1 scene, maybe, learning the way of the water. It's where he learns to ride that thing in the trailer he hops up on with the crossbow. And like, it's a pretty good scene. I feel like the reason he doesn't get that many way of the water scenes is because they don't want to retread the first movie, but at the same time, I wouldn't really mind. Like, that was the best part of the first movie, and doing it again in the water was pretty good in my opinion. I don't know, I wouldn't mind. So what I think they should have done was actually have Avatar 3 be this sort of coming-of-age way of the water story, where it's mostly focused on that one son, and really the siblings as a whole, and Jake's relationship with them, and have Avatar 2 be the other part of the movie. The war, again. That was a great way of putting that, wasn't it? So yeah, like I said in the plot description, humans are back, they're hunting down Jake, they probably still want unobtainium, I don't know, they don't really mention it, but I would assume that's why they land in the forest, and they want this new thing only found in the whales in the water, which I won't spoil, but it's really dumb. The line where they explain what it is almost had me laughing out loud. Now, while I might have described that negatively, all the stuff going on with the villain, the Colonel Quaritch, I think is his name, actually returns from the first movie. I'm not really going to spoil how he returns, but it doesn't really matter. All you need to know is he's now a Navi person, which you can see in the trailers. All the stuff with him is actually really great. Like, every scene with him is pretty cool. It's a lot of retreading what Jake had to go through in the first movie, and also him just being like a really good, interesting, and exciting villain. Like, you never quite know what he's gonna do, but you know it's probably gonna be the worst possible thing he could do in that situation, which is fun to watch. And the final confrontation in this movie is where it just absolutely goes downhill for me. A lot of people love it because it's a great visual spectacle, but so is the rest of the movie, and like I said, the rest of the movie isn't doing anything amazing on the plot side of things, so the spectacle really only gets you so far when your movie is 3 hours and 12 minutes. The final battle is sort of like Quaritch trying to get revenge on Jake, and Jake wanting revenge for Quaritch trying to attack his family, and the Quaritch side of things is pretty well done, like I keep saying, but the Jake side is really, really weak, which leads to this final battle being kind of silly. The stuff with Jake's kids is very goofy. Essentially, Quaritch kidnaps 3 of the 4 of them, which I actually didn't realize, than one of the water children, but the water people are pretty much skipped over in this movie, which is also why I think it should have been 2 completely separate movies, but anyway. And essentially, the kids kind of start escaping and then they get captured again, and then they escape again, and then some of them escape, and then the other ones go back to help them, and then they get captured, and it's kind of this hot potato. Literally, the youngest daughter has a line like, "I can't believe I'm captured again." And I was like, yeah, I can't believe it either. Can we move on, please? The kids just almost died too many times in this movie that it kind of loses its impact after like the third or fourth time. So the fact that the final battle is like a hot potato of the kids being kidnapped just really... it was not fun to watch. And in general, pretty much any plotline in this movie outside the stuff with the Colonel, like I keep saying, just feels generally incomplete. Not to spoil too much, the best example of this is very, very early on, like in the opening, like 4 minutes maybe. Jake has a narration line where he says his wife doesn't really like the human character Spider, and how she sort of sees him as like a cat that she still doesn't really like because he's a human and he's not a Na'vi person. And it's like, okay, that's fair, that's interesting, I can't wait to see how they explore that. Well, Spider is separated from them for most of the movie, not really going to say why, but it doesn't really matter. And then by the end of the movie, where, you know, it's the standoff between Jake and his wife and Quaritch, and all their kids are kind of caught in the middle. Jake's wife is ready to kill Spider to get back at Quaritch because Quaritch is related to Spider. I mean, it's pretty obvious within like the first few scenes of the movie, so I'm not really going to consider that a spoiler. And she slices his chest a little bit, not enough to kill him, and is holding a knife to his throat. And I was like, okay, I don't know if she would really go through with it. I feel like we're supposed to think she would because we had that line 3 hours ago where Jake was like, she doesn't really like him anyway. She doesn't see him as a kid like I do. But then at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, like, there's no way Disney would let one of their main characters kill a child as revenge, would they? But yeah, as you might expect, he doesn't die. It was just really weird to me how they have this very specific setup that leads to this huge moment in the final fight with absolutely nothing in between. There's a lot of stuff like that where it sort of feels like we skipped a step here. There's something with the eldest sister where she starts having this plot line about connecting to the mother tree, and then it feels like we missed the step where everything kind of comes together and she gets to see how that helps her in life. I'm trying to be a little bit vague so I don't spoil things, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff where it just feels like we either skip the entire middle or a little piece of the middle, or it doesn't quite come together at the end, and that really, really bugs me because there is so much going on in this movie, like I keep saying. So yeah, to prevent myself from repeating more than I already have, let's just wrap this up and summarize it real quick so I can get out of here. Essentially, Avatar: Way of the Water is just a slightly worse redo of the first one. The spectacle is all still there, seeing all the underwater scenes, absolutely stunning. I did enjoy seeing this in 3D for sure. But overall, the plot, while still serviceable and in a few spots a little bit better than the first movie, also has a lot of spots where it's a lot weaker because it feels like they're trying to stuff this Quaritch versus Jake revenge war plotline along with a coming-of-age Way of the Water plotline that just don't end up gelling together very well at all, in my opinion. So, overall, I would give this movie like a 6.5 out of 10. Me personally, closer to a 6, but I think if I'm trying to be like fair and a little more objective, it's a lot closer to a 7. If you want a nice big spoilery review of this movie, I recommend Chris Stuckman's review. I highly value his opinion. He was a lot more fond of this movie, especially the final battle, than I was. I could sit here for hours nitpicking the final battle. I really didn't like it. But yeah, if you want a little more specific, go check out his video. I really liked it. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't know, maybe wait till Disney Plus at this point. I guess I would recommend if you're a fan. If you're not an Avatar fan, you never really saw the first one, maybe go check out that one instead and then decide. And if you like it, it's really just more of the same here. That's all from me. Have a good night and keep it crispy.